Hi, good evening, everybody. I hope everyone is doing well and are having a good day. So, our topic for today is procrastinating among college students, and we'll also talk about causes of procrastination and how to overcome it. We'll just give a quick introduction. I'm Prithvi, a peer educator. I'm a grad student majoring in data science.
And my name is Maria. I'm also a peer educator and I'm a senior matron in psychology. And we would like to ask a person who's attending today, what is your name and major, and what is your favorite procrastination activity?
So, Grover, do you want to give a quick introduction about yourself?
Okay, my name is Grover. I'm studying Master of Science in Data Science. So this is my second semester. About procrastination, I think that I used to watch videos or movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good thing. I think one of the favorite procrastination activity that I do is, I guess, binge watching Netflix, or maybe like looking at strategies of how not to procrastinate.
100%. That's also my favorite. Like I just watch videos on YouTube how to stop procrastinating while I'm procrastinating.
Yeah, and also like just like online, just like checking it online of things whichever I don't need it, like just like procrastination activity again.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, the next slide. So, interestingly, research shows that more than 80% of college students procrastinate, with about 20% consistently doing it all the time. Shocking and as well as interesting, right? So, in fact, some researchers has shown that procrastination can be also a harmful behavior that lowers a student's grade. So, while some people think that procrastination is simply a lack of productivity, but is not completely true. Many of us, like when we procrastinate, we actually tend to do something, but the action and the result that we are doing is totally, usually different, something different than what we initially planned. So, some of the examples of academic procrastination is that as a student, I think we tend to like instead of studying for an exam, let's say if we have a week to study for an exam, but we also end up postponing our studying unnecessary until the last night before the exam, even though like we keep wanting to get started. It always happens, right? So, or maybe like we kind of delay working on an important project for an entire semester until it's right before it's due. So we always like sometimes we waste time browsing social media that we finally manage to get started on a homework assignment. Next slide.
I agree with you. We are all guilty of procrastination, but we would like to also talk about the actual definition of procrastination. So procrastination is defined as needlessly putting off starting or finishing tasks or delaying tasks to the point of discomfort. And procrastination has two important components. One is frequent delay of tasks, and another is considerable anxiety. So, for example, if you intentionally delay tasks to kind of relax, do something else, and you don't experience that anxiety, you don't worry about doing tasks, you don't worry about how well you do that task or that you have to do the task in this very moment, you don't experience anxiety, you just intentionally delay the task, that's fine. If you know that you will do the task and you will do it well later, that's completely okay. But procrastination is when you experience discomfort and anxiety, but still putting off doing the tasks. And next, we would like to talk about some causes of procrastination. So why do we actually procrastinate? Well, procrastination is an extremely complex behavior, and there are multiple factors that impact this behavior, and very often they interact with each other. So some of those factors are affective components, behavioral components, cognitive components, and mental and psychological components. So affective component means that the reason why you procrastinate might be because of negative emotions that you experience. And sometimes you experience negative emotions because of the tasks that you need to do. For example, if you need to write a very long, big paper, you know that it's difficult and you know that it's a challenging assignment. So you would normally experience some amount of negative emotions about that task, and that's why you would procrastinate. Another reason is procrastination might be a defense mechanism. So you procrastinate to kind of protect yourself from negative evaluations. You might be worried that if you do the task not well enough, you will be evaluated as by others or by yourself as not good enough, not worthy enough, stupid, or someone who is just not competent enough to do the task. That is also related to a fear of failure. So you're just worried about doing the task poorly, so you kind of postponing doing the task after all. Another reason is when we experience guilt and shame, which are associated with procrastination. So because in our culture, procrastination and laziness are so stigmatized, and productivity is glamorized, and productivity is just something that is socially expected from everybody. We have this idea that procrastination is bad and wrong. So when we procrastinate, we experience guilt and shame because of this behavior, which later will impact how we do the task, how we do other tasks. And so actually, research found that high procrastinators do not differ from low procrastinators in their study behavior, or even on negative cognitive processes, nearly as much as they differ on anxiety and guilt and shame. So people who tend to procrastinate a lot, they also experience a lot of guilt and shame and anxiety, while those who don't procrastinate, they don't experience those negative emotions about themselves. Procrastination is also very related to perfectionism. And so people who are perfectionists, they have this tendency to set very high standards for themselves. And sometimes those standards are unreachable and so unrealistic that they set themselves for failure. As a result, they think that they just don't do tasks well enough, and later they kind of postpone and delay doing tasks after all. So being perfectionist is not good for your mental health because it makes you procrastinate more and delay tasks, and it increases your anxiety. And the next component would be behavior. Prithvi, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Next slide.
The behavioral component.
Yes. So sometimes it happens because of lack of time, structure, and sometimes because of the management skills, or maybe the external distractions in the environment, or maybe like the cluttered environment, or maybe it's too loud, or majorly these days, I think the major problem is social media, right? We get hooked to TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, and, we get some type of different pleasure through that, so that you can just kind of delay this task, or maybe not having a routine. Considering a COVID situation, all our routine is totally changed, right? So even sometimes, it relates the busyness as well. So next slide.
So another component is cognitive component, which means it's all about your thinking. So how you think will impact whether or not you procrastinate on something. So for example, if you attribute success to external rather than internal factors, you're more likely to procrastinate. That means if you think that you did well on the exam just because you got lucky and exam questions were easy, that means that you attribute your success to external factors. But if you start to shift your thinking and try to attribute your success to internal factors, like knowing that you are competent enough and you're smart enough to do the task, and you studied hard in the class, and that's why you got the good grade on the exam, that will impact your thinking and it will make it more positive. So when you would have to do the task, you will procrastinate less on this. So if you attribute your success to external factors, that might cause procrastination. Then individual differences in thinking. It means that some people are they tend to think more positively about tasks than other people. And if you think about task more positively, you think that the task is doable, it will just make it easier for you to start the task and continue doing that. Next is low self-efficacy. So self-efficacy means the belief that you can successfully complete the task. In other words, if you have like low self-belief that you will do well on the task, that might cause procrastination. So that's kind of believing in yourself and your own abilities. And last is lack of motivation. So sometimes you're just not motivated enough to do the task, and that might make you procrastinate more. Prithvi, you want to talk about mental and psychological component?
Yes. So mental and psychological component is one of the important factors when it comes to the reasons or the causes. So experiencing stress and anxiety or other psychological distress, that is very common these days. So stress is a result of procrastination, and again it comes with anxiety as well, or maybe poor mental health or untreated mood disorders. So that majorly comes because the bad routine or the bad maybe sleeping patterns, or sometimes we always feel burnt out or fatigue or overwork. So, and also the reason is again the lack of self-care or the sleep hygiene. So these are the main important factors. And yes, sleeping hygiene is one of the factors that would totally affect the overall health of a person. So let's go with the consequences of academic procrastination. So one of the major reasons, or maybe that is proven through the researcher, is that it has a negative moral connotation, and not surprisingly, sometimes feelings of guilt or shame are always mentioned as consequences of procrastination, maybe when it comes to guilt or shame, anxiety, stress, and also negative academic consequences, like usually like lower grades or poor academic performance. So when it comes to academic performance, let's say, for example, procrastination is associated with a wide range of academic issues like lower quality work or bad exam score or bad grades, increased academic misconduct or increased course failures, or maybe like course withdrawals, and an increased likelihood of dropping out. Or majorly, like these days, I think we are going to the late or missing or incomplete work during submissions. And when it comes to negative emotional well-being, like an example, so it leads to various negative emotions like guilt, shame, or maybe sadness, or maybe these times like becoming more critical to yourself and less motivated. So because of like all these activities, it again relates to your mental and physical health, which gets worse. So for an example, maybe like it leads to some of the mental health issues like stress, and also like physical health issues like lack of sleep, or maybe exhaustion or fatigue, burnout, or disappointment, and lack of sleep again. Next slide.
Okay, so we also want to talk about what we're supposed to do when we procrastinate. Well, first, you would have to understand why you procrastinate, which of those 4 factors that we just talked about is the main factor that impacts your procrastination. So if you think that the reason why you procrastinate is because of your emotions, and you might feel like you struggle with perfectionism, anxiety, guilt, shame, worry, disappointment, or being self-critical, what you may try to do is set realistic expectations, know how long the task will take you, know that maybe the way you do the task, it will not be perfect, but it will be a good work. Try to practice self-compassion and be kind to yourself. You don't have to beat yourself up if you had to watch 3 episodes on Netflix and instead of doing your homework. Just be kind to yourself, forgive yourself, and do the work. Practicing mindfulness will also might be also helpful, and being patient with yourself, knowing that procrastination is it's like a habit. So breaking habits is difficult, and you have to be patient with yourself while you're doing that. If you realize that procrastination impacts your life so much that it impacts all the areas of your life and you struggle with it so much, you can talk to a mental health professional, and we have a lot of resources on campus, and we have licensed therapists on campus, and you can have free therapy. So that's something that might help to deal with those negative emotions.
So what if our procrastination is caused by and expressed through external behavior, like a lack of time structure and time management skills, or maybe like the distraction in the environment, or maybe like the noise or the clutter, or maybe not having a proper routine, right? So these are the reasons for behavioral procrastination. So what would we do with that action would be like postponing our tasks for no reasons, or maybe like sometimes we overschedule our day, or maybe we don't like start our task because of unclear instructions, we kind of slack off, or maybe like again we start searching for reasons or distractions to relax, like social media or maybe binge watching Netflix. So what could help? So let's say if we have like a week deadline to submit something, maybe like we can just like set fake deadlines like 3-4 days before that, so we could just like get things done before that. Or maybe like it's always good to know how long it'll take for us to complete the task, and then again break the task into smaller chunks, so it which becomes more enjoyable. Or, and this is one of the favorite things that I would actually like to do, like ask for help. There are like a lot of people who would always be ready to help you during these tiring times. So seek out for help from professors, classmates, or maybe tutors. There are like again a lot of tutoring that the university is providing, we should definitely make use of it. And also like it's very important to take a break, or maybe go for a walk and take a nap, which is my favorite thing, taking a nap again. So, and also like it's important to make studying more enjoyable. Like you can just like pick some humorous examples, for your homework assignments, or maybe like, you can just like a student can just like go somewhere pleasant to study, like library, or maybe like listen to energizing music while doing so. Or it's okay, and also like give permission to make mistakes. So it's very important to like forgive yourself and be very soft to yourself. So, and and also it's always important to keep in mind that if anything is not working out, such as like lack of sleep or maybe depression or ADHD, so it's very important to like resolve that issue first, maybe like using professional help, and in order to like successfully overcome our procrastination. Like in the campus, like there's CAPS, and then there are a lot of different clubs which would help you combat this. Next one.
Okay, so if you think that your procrastination is caused by cognitive factors such as the thinking, you may notice that those patterns in thinking, when you kind of talk to yourself, like, I can't do the task, I will do it later, I don't know enough to start the task, I don't have motivation, I should do something else, or I should do well. If I don't, I'm a failure. So what may help is, again, shifting how you think about yourself and about the tasks. So you may say to yourself that this task is doable. If you feel like, oh, I will just do it later. So try to just start the task, no matter how much you will do of those homework or assignment. Just do the absolute minimum of that you need to do to get this, to start the task. If you feel like you don't have enough motivation, research shows that motivation often follows action. So once you start doing the task, your motivation increases. If you think to yourself, I should do something else, ask yourself how urgent is the other task that you want to do instead. If it is something that you need to do right now at that moment, well, you would probably have to do it. But if it's not urgent, just try to stay focused on the task that you need to do and that you plan to do. If you've been too perfectionistic and strict with yourself, just try to be kinder to yourself and tell that even if you make a mistake, you still can change it. You can make it better. You can improve next time. So that's on shifting your perspective and thinking.
So what if your procrastination is caused by mental or psychological factors like experiencing stress, anxiety, or other maybe psychological distress like poor mental health or maybe untreated mood disorders? So which would result in always fatigue or maybe overwork or burnout, and also like a lack of proper self-care, right? So this is one of the major problems. So how we feel, so we always feel overtired or maybe stressed, exhausted, always struggling with mental health issues. So what can help? So it's very important to take proper break to just relax, and again working on sleep hygiene and have a good sleeping routine and practice self-care, like take enough break or maybe going out. I understand because the weather it's very difficult, like go out and then like take a break, but then there are like a lot of self-care activities that you can just like do indoors, and maybe like talk to a mental health professional. So through college we can reach out to CAPS. Always there are like licensed trained professionals. They've definitely helped us. Next one. So tips to overcome procrastination. So there are a lot of tips that would actually help in overcoming procrastination, like doing the task just for a few minutes instead of, like doing the entire task. So it's always important to shift the way that you think, or maybe find time management strategies that would work for you. So maybe like start by creating a to-do list with things that you'd like to accomplish. Sometimes if necessary, it's good to put a date next to each item if there is a deadline that you need to meet. And it's important to again estimate how long task will take to complete, and then double that number so that you won't fall into a cognitive trap of underestimating how long the project could take. And then when you are faced with a bigger project, you might always feel daunted, intimidated, or even like, you slack off. So when you look at the sheer amount of work involved, so at this point, it's important to take individual items on your list and break them into a series of steps. So as you start to tackle items on your list, pay attention to like when your thoughts of procrastination start to creep into your mind. So if you're able to find yourself thinking, I don't feel like doing this, or maybe I'll have some time to work on this later, then you need to really recognize that you're about to procrastinate. So when you feel tempted to procrastinate, don't just give into the urge. Instead, force yourself to like spend at least some few minutes working on the task. In many cases, you might find that it is easier to complete once you get started. It's always true, right? Like we just need that push to just like start the work rather than like, you know, we need some external motivation sometimes. So always, it's always important to manage your environment, like clean, tidy, neat, noise-free environment, so that you could just focus. And always, sometimes it's advisable to do the harder tasks first, so that, in the end, you'll be like done with easy tasks, which would actually help you finish the task much easier. And this is one of the nice techniques that I recently read about, Pomodoro technique. So, and I've also like using this. So you can just like set a timer for like 25 minutes and then like 5 minutes break. Sometimes people even do 50 minutes of complete focus and then like 10 minutes of break. So it's a nice technique. So you can just like kind of list your items that you want to finish it and then like set a timer and then take a break so that you will not have that continuity and you won't even get bored, so you will have equal time to relax and also study. And one of the important factors that we always tend to forget is celebrating success. And so it's very important to like celebrate success after you're done with the task for the day, and that would just motivate you to like focus for next day's task. Next one.
So next, we would like to talk about some resources that we have on campus. The first one is CAPS. So if you feel like procrastination is something that you struggle a lot with and you struggle with like overcoming it and dealing with it, and maybe it impacts your academic success or other areas of your life, talking to licensed mental health professionals can be very helpful, and we have free access to therapy, and you can meet with the therapist in person or online. So you can check CAPS website to learn more about that. We also have events that are organized by peer educators. So we have those wellness roundtables that are every Tuesday and Wednesday from 11 to 2 p.m. at UC.
Yeah, and there are like a lot of activities that CAPS has come across through peer educators like Art with Us, and also like a lot of painting, drawing, and a lot of activities. And also like if you're not able to like make it in person, so there's one more event that'll happen every Tuesdays from 6 to 7 p.m. This will start from Feb 1st, and that's Art with CAPS. So again, they're conducted by peer educators. So if you have any questions about mental health and therapy, you can just email to umd1caps@umich.edu, and they're quite quick and they'll get back to you real quick.
Yes. Also, just a quick and easy tip. So you know how we all like ashamed when we're not being productive around other people. So like that's like a cognitive trick that we can use to like overcome procrastination. So if you find a place on campus like a library or those study areas in each building, you can go there and study because you will know that other people are watching you, kind of watching you. And you are more likely to study around other people than if you just like sitting in your room and you're more likely to just scroll your Instagram feed.
Yeah, that I think I definitely would try that, because you will kind of have one accountability to just like people be seeing or watching you, so you'll be a little serious about it, and then like you kind of like finish your task for the day. I really like that.
Yeah, I use that a lot. I trick myself
yeah.
into studying like that. And last, so what is one thing that you will do today to break the procrastination habit?
Maybe I think I will start writing down my task and then breaking the task into smaller chunks and then setting a timer to follow Pomodoro technique of 25 minutes and then again 5 minutes break. So I will do that today. How about you, Marika?
So I will probably just try to get started as soon as possible when I get my assignment or homework, because I know that even though I'm not feeling motivated in the moment, if I get started, my motivation level will increase. So I will be more likely to enjoy the task and do the task once I get started.
Yeah, totally. I even agree to that point. And also, considering the weather, again, that is also kind of making us slack off a bit. So, can't really blame ourselves sometimes.
Grover, how about you?
Well, I plan to make a plan for my tasks, and set times in order to do that.
Great plan. And just remembering that done is better than perfect. I think it can be very helpful because I think all of us want to do really well in classes and do our best, but sometimes we just overthink and try to do everything perfectly. So just remember that done is better than perfect.
Yes, absolutely.
Are there any questions? Anything that you might be still wondering about procrastination or anything about CAPS or mental health activities on campus? We are free to take those questions. Okay,
Okay.
I guess that's it.
Thanks a lot for joining us. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks for attending. Bye.